Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have two replays for you playing light tanks on Thiepval Ridge, and we're going to be spawning in the exact same location in both of these replays. We're going to be using the same strategies, but we're going to have different outcomes, and I'm going to talk you through why I think that is in the gameplays. And it might also give people a bit of a confidence boost to those of you that are trying to boost your win rate and trying to win more of your games. If you carry on doing what you're doing, you go to the right locations, you analyse your gameplay and think about some minor tweaks to your positioning, you can improve your win rate. I started really poorly in WoT Tanks console. I didn't really play properly until about 10 to 15,000 games, and now I'm nearing 40,000 games and I'm nearing a 60% win rate, and I'm not naturally good at the game in terms of my reactions and that kind of thing, but I learned a lot about the game and that has improved my gameplay. So yeah, stick in there and hopefully I can help you on that journey and give you a few tips and tricks in these replays. But what light tanks are we talking about in today's video? Well, the first replay I shall see in the background is in the M551 Sheridan, which is a Western Alliance Era 2 light tank, and the second replay is in the AMX 13 SS-11 TCA, which is a premium Era 2 Western Alliance light tank. So the Sheridan, if you want to see my full review of this tank, I'll link that above for you now. But I'll give you a brief rundown, I should say, of the Sheridan, and then we'll get talking about my equipment and commander setup and how we've played this battle. So the Sheridan, it has a 152mm gun launcher that can fire HE heat or ATGMs out of it. The ATGMs deal 1100 damage, as do the HE rounds if you penetrate, and the heat deals 660 damage. The penetration on the HE is 170mm, so very low. The penetration on the ATGMs is very nice at 450mm, and the heat rounds have 360mm of penetration. The shell velocities are all very slow. Nothing gets above 700. It's 693 on the HE, 683mm on the heat, and 320mm on those ATGMs, so you do have to bear that in mind. And one thing to note about the Sheridan is that it doesn't have the multiple weapon system like the AMX 13 has, so you can't just hold down your ammo switch button and switch to your HE or heat rounds. You have to reload them individually, so it requires a little bit more thinking, but I think most people will fire off their ATGMs and then head to their HE or their heat rounds a little later on. So what equipment and commander setup have I got on the Sheridan then? So in terms of my equipment, I run advanced loader, gun stabilizer and traction system, and with my commander I run Sixth Sense, Born Leader, rapid loading, steady aim, snapshot, situational awareness, camouflage expertise, muffled shot and green thumb. You might want to think about taking out situational awareness due to the true vision system in Cold War, but this is a World War II crew that I've just nabbed off a tank, and I obviously didn't have the gold to change it. I'd probably change that up now once I thought about it a little bit more. And in terms of my consumables, you'll see that I'm running food to boost the DPM of this tank even more. But if you're a little bit more passive, or you feel like you're getting caught out a little bit, because this is a very larger profile tank with poorer camo than the AMX 13, you might want to run the enhanced smoke screen. So if you have my setup, you'll probably have nearly 600 meters view range. I can still concealment rating of 275, which isn't too bad. You can go 76 kilometers an hour forwards. It's only 15 kilometers an hour backwards, so you do have to bear that in mind. That can catch you out, and you will have a power to weight ratio of 25.48, 42 degrees a second turret traverse, 46 degrees a second on your hull. Your accuracy goes to 0.36, so it's still fairly derpy, but it is a derp gun. The aim time's 2.7 seconds. I now have a 15-second reload for my ATGMs and a 12.8 second reload if I'm firing heat or HE, and my DPMs are actually quite good, and it's a very good damage dealing light tank. So the DPM on the HE, if you penetrate, is 5100, but it's very hard to penetrate all of your rounds unless you're firing to the rear of an American tank or a Leopard or something like that. The DPM with the heat is 3093, and with the ATGMs is 4400, so it's a very good damage dealing light tank. You do have to hide the slightly larger profile of the Sheridan, but you can make it work if you're using the foliage like we did at the start of the battle. So How do I like to play the Sheridan? When I like to play the Sheridan as a sort of support light tank, or a kind of a medium tank, really. You have to watch out for the reverse speed on ridgelines like this, but I like to start by firing all of my ATGMs off at the start of the battle. I'm chunking the opponents down for later in the battle, when I can rush in with my hit points that I preserved at the start of the battle, use my HE to finish them off. With splash damage, you don't necessarily have to penetrate, and you can also fire your heat rounds against tanks that you know that you can penetrate. But it's nice with the HE if people are hull down in Cold War with those extremely tough turrets in Era 2. You can fire those HE rounds with the 152mm gun launcher, and you're able to just splash them, chunk them down, and that's the way that you can support your heavies on the front line. The biggest sort of thing that I do with the Sheridan is use foliage like now, so I'm hiding the sort of silhouette of my tank, and I'm just going around the battlefield. I'm supporting my teammates when they go forward, so if there's a tank on my team, another light tank that has better concealment, I'll let them spot, or maybe support them with my view range, because it does have very good view range, but I'll mainly play this as a damage dealer and not really as a scout at the start of the battle. And then towards the end of the battle, like we have now, we're the only light tank on our team, so we're going to have to be the ones that go forwards, and we're going to try and spot for our teams at the end of the battle. I have some hit points to take a shot or two if needed. I just have to be wary of tanks that are going to ram me, like the really fast heavy and medium tanks in Cold War, and I've got to be wary of other light tanks or tanks that have ATGMs, because they will penetrate me because you don't have any armour. I get caught on a rock here, have some rock problem physics there, some physics problems, but we managed to get out of that. We're just going to auto aim there. It doesn't really matter where we hit that tank, because we were going to penetrate, we're going to splash to kill that tank. Now I'm getting shot from all angles, and it's just trying to get out of this situation alive. We've got a Leopard 1 there, moving backwards and forwards and side to side, trying to avoid the BMP2 shells, and the Leopard 1 takes them out for us. But we've done enough at the end of this battle to sort of wreck the team, chunk them down at the start of the battle. We've caused a distraction, we've got the view range up at the end of the battle, and it looks like our medium and heavies have joined us. We have 27 hit points left to play with. We're nearing 4k assistance, we've blocked 60 damage from the BMP2, and we're nearly at 7k damage. Hopefully we can get an HE splash or penetration to finish off the game, and hopefully we can push our damage total even more. And this is a very good damage total for an Era 2 light tank. We splash at the front of the Leopard 1A1 there. Unfortunately we don't penetrate, but we're going to use our remaining 27 hit points to do a little bit of ram damage. We take out the Leopard 1A1, who also takes out me in an eye for an eye, but that ends up being a very good round for the Sheridan, with a victory. We have 7.3k direct damage, 3.9k assistance, 2 kills, 1503 XP, make a lovely profit of 206,000 silver, and we finish MVP on that team. So yeah, I hope that was an interesting gameplay for you. We used our ATGMs at the start of the battle to chunk the opponents down, stay hidden using the foliage, and then we went in at the end of the battle, used our view range and our hit points, and we caused a distraction, got some view range out, and we managed to take out tanks with our HE, and we didn't even really need to aim the HE, just aim it a little bit, or to aim just to get them splashing on the enemy tank, although I would always recommend manually aiming. But that's enough for the first replay in the M551 Sheridan. We're going to head over now and have a look at the replay in the AMX 13 SS-11 TCA. So here we are back on Thiepval Ridge in the AMX 13 SS-11 TCA. We're in the same spawn, and we're going to head to the same position that we did with the Sheridan in the sort of E8, E9 area on the hill on the eastern flank, and we're going to see if we can spot out. And with the AMX 13 you can be a little bit more aggressive with your spotting. You're a much lower profile, you have a much better concealment rating than the Sheridan, and a better reverse speed, so that's a little bit of a difference that we can try and take advantage of at the start of this battle. But we are going to try and get our ATGMs off at the start, chunk some opponents down, and then we can go in our autoloader. Same kind of tactic that we did with the Sheridan, but we do have to to circle enemy tanks and make sure we penetrate with this autoloader, this 75mm autoloader, because we aren't able to splash HE on the enemy team. So that's a couple of differences right off the bat there, but I'll tell you a little bit about the AMX 13 SS-11 TCA at the start of this battle. I'll tell you my equipment and commander setup, and then we'll talk you through the rest of the gameplay. So the AMX 13 SS-11 TCA does things like that FE4211s, which is absolutely beautiful. So that's 3k right off the bat, but it has a 75mm 6-shot autoloader, which is capable of dealing 280 damage per shot with its premium standard APCR and 290 with its HE, which is completely pointless. If you want to fire the premium APCR, the penetration is 212, so it is very low for Era 2 in Cold War, and it only goes up to 231mm if you choose to fire the premium APCR, which is what I choose to run now, because you still make a damn good profit, and there's 85mm on the HE round, so I recommend carrying a sort of half and half between the standard APCR and premium, or just carrying full premium and no HE rounds. And if you want to know the shell velocities, it's 1000 meters a second on the standard APCR, 1125 meters a second on the premium APCR, and 753 meters a second on the HE rounds. And in terms of its ATGMs, then it has a 4-shot autoloader. You can only carry 2 clips of ATGM, so that's 8 ATGMs. They have 660mm of penetration, which is absolutely phenomenal for Era 2, and they deal 1210 alpha damage. And because of the massive damage potential, you do ammo rack things like we did to that poor FE4211 at the start of the battle. And the shell velocity is very slow on those ATGMs. It's 160 meters a second, so you do have to practice sort of leading and guiding your ATGMs, but it isn't too hard because you're able to get that much closer with your fantastic concealment. Speaking of view range and concealment, I now have a 600 meters view range and a 149 meters still concealment, and with the low profile you can get extremely close to your enemy, use foliage to hide your silhouette, and you can absolutely decimate tanks from sort of an ambush position in foliage. So what equipment and commander setup do I run on the AMX 13 then? I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot and Green Thumb on my commander, just to improve my gun handling and my concealment that little bit more. And with my equipment I run Advanced Concealment, Traction System and Advanced Powertrain. I run both mobility pieces of equipment because I feel that the mobility needs it. The traverse speeds are a little slow to start off with, and I run the Advanced Concealment to make my concealment just that little bit better, meaning that I can get forward and use my vision more effectively than something like the Sheridan. So if you choose my equipment and commander setup, you'll have a power to weight ratio of 25.95, so basically 26. You can go 75.3 kilometers an hour forwards, nearly 29 kilometers an hour backwards, which is much better than the Sheridan. Your traverse speed on your turret will be nearly 42 degrees a second and 44 degrees a second on the hull. Your accuracy goes to 0.36, your aim time goes to 1.92. And the reload for your 75mm is 8.2 seconds compared to the reload on the ATGMs, which is 32.79 seconds. The AMX 13 can make use of the multiple weapon system, so you hold down your ammo select button and you are able to switch between your autoloader and your ATGMs, and it does mean that this is a very powerful damage dealing light tank indeed. The DPM on the 75mm 6-shot autoloader is 3.5k damage with my setup and 3.7k damage on the ATGMs with my setup, so it's a very powerful concealed light tank. It's a much lower profile. It does struggle with its traverse speed and its engine power like this going uphill, but my engine is damaged, making it look a little bit worse than it actually is. But it's much better for this kind of thing, sniping at distance at the end of the battle, getting forward and using your view range, and it's a much easier tank to hide than the Sheridan. And with the mobility equipment you are able to circle some heavy tanks, but you do have to bear in mind you're an extremely light tank, and if people ram you they will absolutely decimate you. One thing that you'll see that I've done in this battle is run out of ATGMs. I do like to use them at the start of the battle to chunk the enemies down, but sometimes you do have a situation like this where you are left just with your 75mm gun that doesn't have fantastic penetration even on its premium APCR, and at distance it's going to lose a lot of penetration, so I'm going to have to get a lot closer if I want to take out more of these tanks. Unfortunately, it's now me versus 4 enemies. I tried to do as much as possible. I went in where necessary, used my hit points, but my teammates I should say, were losing their hit points a lot quicker than I had wanted, and now it's just about trying to use my mobility, use my concealment to make the enemies guess where I'm coming from, take them out one by one as they come towards me, and hopefully that means that I'm able to take this one down. But it's going to be a very hard game because there's a lot of HP on the enemy team. So at the start of the battle you saw me go to the same location. I got some ATGMs in. I maybe went forward a little bit quicker than with the Sheridan, tried to circle tanks because you're not able just to splash them with the HE, so you do have to be a little bit more aggressive. This tank will probably do a lot better in the hands of someone who is more used to the multiple weapon system, someone that likes to play light tanks that have good concealment and can use the bush mechanics and the spotting mechanics in World of Tanks console. Of course you do have the true vision system, but because of your low profile, if you use the foliage and all of the shadows and stuff, you should be able to sort of remain undetected, and that's the kind of tactic that I use in the AMX 13. I try to preserve my hit points for as long as possible, and then I can go in at the end of the battle and circle tanks and finish them off. But unfortunately there's just a few too many hit points left on the enemy team, and I'm going to have to try and think about how to do this. There's a cap to reset, and there's also a medium tank overlooking, so I'm going to try and juke that medium, like I'm going up the A line, and I'm going to come here down the B line and go up into the cap and try and get a reset off and then escape. As you'll see, I run the smoke screen on the AMX 13 because it improves your concealment that a little bit more, and it gets me out of trouble when I've run out of ATGMs or my autoloader is dry, although you do reload very quickly. Unfortunately we didn't spot that T72 AV until now. I know there's a medium to my right, but I'm just going to have to chance going in, trying to take this tank out, but the penetration is pretty damn awful on this tank. We evade a shell from the medium to our right. We wait till that T72 AV is flat on our side, and now we're going to try and juke this M60A2 using smoke, and then we're going to try and go around him and circle him. Bear in mind that you can't auto aim like you can do usually with the smoke screen. We go into the smoke to avoid the ATGM from the enemy light tank, but unfortunately it's just a little bit too much. We weren't able to get out of that position, and yeah, everything's pretty much as fast as you in Cold War, especially in the eras 2 and 3, and we weren't able to get out of that situation. But we dealt a hefty amount of damage for an era 2 light tank with 13,300 direct damage, 1,390 assistance, 8 kills, 1,212 XP. We finished top of our team, but unfortunately that is a decent defeat in the MX 13. I tried the sort of same tactic, tried the same thing, it didn't quite work out, and I'd say in that instance it's a little bit of me losing my hit points a little bit too quickly. I should have maybe preserved a couple of ATGMs for the end of the battle, and that's something I'm going to think about for the future in this tank. But I'd say that I did as much as I probably could in that battle. I was nearly running out of ammunition in terms of the ATGM and the 75mm. We still made a fairly decent profit, and I've been having some fantastic games in this tank using the same tactics. So I'd say, analysing the whole gameplay, I did the right thing. It was just the right thing, maybe in the wrong game or an unlucky game, but there's a few things that I can try, like the ATGMs, holding one back, and maybe also trying to get some more distance in the games and using my concealment a little bit better. But I hope you enjoyed watching both of those replays, seeing how the same strategy can work in different tanks. You can have fantastic games in these light tanks. They're very powerful, slightly different styles. You can use this a little bit more aggressively spotting, and the Sheridan will be a lot better just for splashing and maybe a newer player. But that's all I have to say on these tanks. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and the replays light tank on Thiepval Ridge, and you have an idea of where to go from that spawn. It's a very good position on that hill because you can drop back and bait people over. But that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching and all of your support, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.